Welcome to Enlightened, the enlightened journey of life. I am your host, Jen Hamilton, and it is an honor to have you here. I am a conscious life coach and women's empowerment mentor, and I activate a potent level of self and soul inquiry with my clients, which initiates deep and lasting transformation in all areas of their lives. I am here for the full human experience, authentically and audaciously sharing my magic with the world. On this podcast, we're all about mastering life on the way to enlightenment. And as we are here having a human experience, we might as well embrace it all. We play in the space of what is real and tangible, just as much as we play in the space of esoteric and metaphysical. You'll be ignited by deep conversation, whether through my own personal musings, interviews with incredible thought leaders around the world, and everyday divine humans sharing their soulful stories. Thank you for being on this journey. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Enlightened Podcast. I am your host, Jan, and today I'm joined by women's empowerment and results coach, Chelsea Webster. So Chelsea is a mum of 2 teenage boys and is a registered nurse who has worked in the healthcare industry for 20 years. Over her time in the healthcare industry, she's experienced challenging workplace cultures and personalities, which left her frustrated, burnt out, and overwhelmed. Her career focuses on providing better healthcare options for patients, with the emotional health of patients, their family, and even herself put to the side as the physical condition was deemed priority at the time. This has led Chelsea to become qualified in the field of emotional healthcare, becoming a women's empowerment and results coach, and started her business, Create Your Glow. She helps people all around the world to create change in their lives and experience personal power from within. So without further ado, let's dive in. Chelsea, welcome. How are you today?
I'm good, Jen. Thank you for having me on. How are you?
I'm wonderful, and it's my pleasure to have you here. I'm so excited to dive into Create Your Glow and hear all about the incredible work that you do. I've got a question for you first, though.
Mm,
What is something in life that has turned you on lately?
that's turned me on. Ooh, that's a great question. Didn't expect that. What's turned me on? Hmm. Oh, do you know what? I've got a little business venture that I'm trying to do with my sister, and that's probably can't disclose what it is until it comes out, but that's kind of been a bit of a turn on, I would say. Let's just say it can have a bit of a naughty component.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I can't wait to hear about this.
And we'll talk some more when we get that developed.
Absolutely. We'll have to have you back on the show to share this mysterious new turn on business that we've got going on.
Yeah, a little teaser.
Amazing. Now, Chelsea, women's empowerment and results coach. How did
Mm,
this all come about? Because you've got a very different background in nursing to what you're doing now. How did all that come about for you?
yeah, so it came about because if you, and I say to people all the time, if you had met me 12 months ago, I was a very different person. So I would put myself into the category of being very resentful, probably very bitter. Um, if I went out into the workplace or met people, they may not have seen that, but behind the scenes, I pretty much hated people. Saying that as a nurse goes against everything. Um, I still nurse. I actually manage a breast milk bank currently in Victoria, and my background is neonatal intensive care nursing and doing a lot of research in that. But in that time, I also had 2 failed marriages. I've got 2 children from my first marriage, one who has a few little special needs, who's quite challenging. Um, and there was a lot of domestic abuse, financial abuse, emotional, or the gaslighting, narcissistic people, I guess you would say. And I felt quite shameful that I had allowed that to happen not once, but twice. And working in a healthcare industry as well, like you should have known better. Um, so I got to a pretty low point where I realized I needed to change because I blamed everybody for everything else. And I know earlier we were having a conversation about taking responsibility. I would not take any responsibility for anything. So I could work for that company that we were talking about. Could have, not now.
It
Um,
was a particular Australian airline which has a bad rap for taking radical self-responsibility as a company as a whole. We'll just leave it at that.
we'll just leave that. No names need to be mentioned. But
No.
I would classify myself that I was in that category, and it really was, everything was everybody else's fault. And then I got to a point knowing that nothing in my life was going to change without me doing the work first. And I had done some little things, but never actually probably committed properly to do it. And it also kept me safe. It kept me safe not making those changes. I had something to fall back on. I had other people and circumstances to blame, and I could really see the impact it was having on my kids as well, which yeah, it wasn't great. So that's how I got into it. Long-winded version.
That's amazing. And so tell us what is epigenetics?
Mm,
What does that even mean? There'll be people out there going, "What epigenetics? Who?"
yeah. So I guess we all know we've got genes and that they play an important role in our health. And I guess there used to be the idea that what you have is what you have and nothing can be changed. And that is true in a point, but your genes are also affected by your behaviors and your environment. And so epigenetics is the study of how your behavior and your environment can cause the changes that affect the way your genes work. So you can have environmental influences that affect the expression of the genes. So we've all heard of nature versus nurture, and that's actually really been proven now. So we have different experiences that rearrange the chemical marks on our epigenome. So somebody who's experienced negative things in their life, so it could be around a negative relationship or toxins, just behaviors, or alcohol, everything like that, they can grow up and then that changes the way the markers are on their genes. So then they can grow up in a negative environment, and vice versa, really positive, it actually brings out the positive side of things as well. So it's the change of whether and how the genes are released and the information that they carry, and then the experiences during development can change that as well. So it leaves a unique expression, like a signature on your gene, and that kind of comes out. So it can be temporary and permanent, and we now know that we can actually work towards, I guess, undoing some of those expressions and changing things. So we can reverse it. Certain things, there's some things that I guess are always going to be there, but we can reverse the impact and that has on somebody's life. And people get really rich learnings when they're going through a process of working on epigenetics and uncovering what's underneath and actually releasing it, and it can change somebody's life when you get to the bottom of it, and yeah, kind of undo those things. And we're not necessarily just talking about your last generation or a couple of generations back. This goes back to the start of the bloodline as well, that has been passed on, which who would have thought?
Wow, that's incredible. And how is it done? Like, how do you access these genes and markers, and like, is it through a blood test? Is it an energetic thing? Tell us how it actually happens.
Yeah, and I'd say it's an energetic thing, the way you say it there. So there's no blood test. It's actually listening for people's words. So I don't know about you, Jen, but I would always hear my parents, grandparents say things when you're a child or do things a certain way, and you're like, I'm never going to be like that. I'm never going to do that. Yes, you do. You end up doing that.
Mhm.
And then you go,
Oh, yeah, you do.
yeah, it's like, I'm so my mother right now. And I swore I wouldn't be. So it's things like that that have impacted you. So we go through a process of I used to say it was active listening, but it's not really. It's me just listening to somebody and letting them talk, and then also getting them to fill out some paperwork and picking up on things that are themes coming up that they may not realize are there. And when you work out somebody's actual words that's affecting them, we go through a process and it's a closed eye script, and we release it. So we tap into, I guess you'd say, the person who put them on the earth, whatever that is for them. Everybody has a different image, and then we get into different scenarios. So it's a story, really, essentially, and they get learnings from it, and it clears it, and you feel it within your body. You can feel really calm, almost numb, because it's cleared stuff that's been in you for centuries that you didn't even know about. It sounds really bizarre, it sounds really woo woo, but all I have to say is it bloody works.
I love this stuff. I completely froth over this stuff, and especially studying hypnotherapy and
Yeah.
working every one of my clients who work with the subconscious mind, because we're only really now in our generation having the opportunity to have these conversations, have the science backed behind it as well, to
Mm.
bring these things forward and to be like, hang on a second, we are more than just our conscious mind. There's so many layers that go underneath that, and we're starting to look at instead of just having these solutions to current problems, we're going back to the root cause. We're going back and we're doing the inner child work. We're doing past life regression therapy. We're doing epigenetics, we're doing all of these things, and fuck, what a time to be alive, that we get to have all of the access to all of this stuff and bring all of this stuff forward. What was it that drew you to epigenetics, and then working with women to be an empowerment and results coach?
Yeah, so for me, as I said, the background that I have, I don't, it's hard because I can't talk a lot about it at work, because, or in the hospital, because they look at it as if I've got three heads, not just two, but three. And I'm a bit strange and, going against the healthcare system. Um, but for me, I heard somebody mention it and I thought I need to look into this, because it was a period where I really was searching and knew that I needed to make a change for me and my kids and everybody around me. And I was ready at that stage. Whereas before, when I tried things, I don't think I was quite ready because I didn't do it. So I heard somebody mention it and I went, oh, I'm just going to check this out. So I did a session and that was it. And from then on, I was, how can I learn to do this so I can give back to other people the experiences that I've had and how it's changed my life. Um, and that's really how it came about. And then when I learned it was about epigenetics, I was even more in. Um, yeah, so that's pretty much why, how, and seeing the change in somebody. I was just speaking to one of my clients as I was coming home before, and just listening to her, and the fact that she's able to, go to events now and not second guess herself. She belongs, whereas before she didn't feel like she belonged. She's like, I belong there. I can do this. I'm like, of course you belong. You've always belonged. But now she actually feels powerful and ready to do it, and has let go of that self judgment, that people are judging her, or that she's not good enough, that she had imposter syndrome. It's all gone out the window, which is just amazing to see.
Yeah, I love it. It's fantastic work, isn't it? Like, it's such a powerful modality.
Mm.
The types of people that come knocking at your door, Chelsea, I need your help with this. What's a common theme that you're seeing with people? Is it mostly women? Do you see men as well? What are people essentially presenting with by the time they get to you?
So yeah, I am trialing a program with a male at the moment to see how that's going to work. At the moment, it has just been women. What I am finding, the theme seems to be women who are going through like a change. I'm not saying menopause, it's not that change of life. It's more like a life stage. So the kids might be getting older within high school and they feel like they're not as needed, like their role within the family is changing and they've lost themselves. Actually, I don't even like saying lost themselves. It's like they're trying to remember who they used to be before they got into that situation, and they really want to bring that person back. So it's women who, yeah, children who might be getting older, or divorce, or separation. And it's really like they're really trying to refine themselves and what their purpose was, but also what used to bring them joy. Because I don't know about you, but I'm still trying to work out what it was that made me happy prior, because I can't remember. because there was such a
Mhm.
long period of time where I was very unhappy. So it's finding those little things. And when you feel like you've given your power away, so regaining your power and your purpose. So it's women who are really at that stage. But as I said as well, they have to be ready for it, and they want to make that change, because if they don't, it's not going to work.
Oh, it's so true, isn't it? And this is the thing that I always, take clients through as well. Like it's you want the life on the other side of doing the work,
Yep.
but unless you commit to doing the work, which can be messy, you're going to experience the full spectrum of the human emotions because that
Hmm.
is the part of life. Like you actually have to go through the grittiness and the discomfort, and you get to go through all of the beauty and the magic and the highs and all of that. But there's some really dark things that you've got to face off with
Yep.
to get through to the other side where you're like, oh, fuck, I get it now. I'm okay and I'm enjoying this. In fact, you know what? I'm thriving and I can do all of these things. And it is really beautiful and it is really magical.
Yep.
And what I always say, like, it's actually harder to stay stuck not wanting to take those steps into it. Like, you're never going to be fully ready. No one
No.
tells you how dark it can get doing any sort of growth work,
Yep.
or because it's subjective anyway. Someone, you might say, oh, well, I had a bad experience. Well, fucking define bad, let's go there,
Yeah.
and if their subjective perspective is what they've coded as bad, essentially. And so I'm exactly the same as you. It's like you've got to be ready to dive in and do this work. And as coaches and practitioners and facilitators, we get to take people on this journey and we have to let them know, like, we're going on a journey, like pack
Yeah.
your lunch. We're about to step onto this road, and once you get into it, there's so much room for fear, there is so much room to have a breakdown. And I encourage it. I encourage the breakdown to have the breakthrough. Like, we celebrate the breakdowns
Yep.
because we know that when we get to a breakdown point, we've got to a point where we just can't take our own shit anymore. And
Yep.
we're like, I'm done with this version of me. This version of me is dying off. And I'm ready to rebirth into something else. In fact, I was going through this in my own personal life a few weeks ago, and I had a girlfriend message me, and she's like, so I'm at your current funeral of this old version of you right now, and I'd like to say a few words. Here is my obituary. And she just said, I'm honoring the version that Jen was, and she went down fighting. She did not want to die this version of herself. But like, it was so funny. And she's a fellow coach as well. We're at the point where we can celebrate the death that we have within ourselves,
Yep.
but for some people, it is quite daunting. Like, for some people, the idea of having a breakdown, if they haven't had a supportive experience before, if they haven't had a coach or an empowering mentor in their corner before, it might feel like hell on earth, because even if you do have someone in your corner, it can still be hell on earth. Um,
Yeah.
what would you say to women that might be listening that going, oh, well, I've kind of, I've had the breakdown. The kids are getting older. They're going to move out soon. I'm facing divorce. Or I've been through divorce. It's all too heavy. It's all too much. I just can't even take that first step. You on the other side that takes people through the journey, what would you say to them?
Yeah. And that's a great way of saying it. I think for me, it's realizing that who you are and valuing yourself again, because without you realizing your value, not just to yourself, but to everyone around you, you're never going to be ready to make that change. Um, and being prepared to let go of what's keeping you safe. And so I think that we all have those secondary gains, and I'm not sure if people understand what that means, but if you don't make that change, you're going to be that person who I was, who had a reason to blame everybody. But you become really bitter, and people don't like being around you, and you attract the wrong people to you as well, and that's when you get into that vicious cycle. um, but the secondary gain keeps you small, it keeps you safe, and it always gives you that out. And when you're prepared to let all that go, the world is incredible, and it opens up. yes, you do lose people from your life. I'll be the first to admit that. I have lost some people from my life because they wanted to keep me as that person before because it made them feel better. And we'd
Mm,
get into that drama triangle. And there's still some people in my life that it's very hard for them not to be in my life just to for circumstances with work or um, family members as well, and they constantly try and drag you back. So you have to be prepared to realize your life is going to change. It is going to change for the better. Be prepared to have some losses, but the gains on the other side are worth it more than anything. So people who have come into my life since making changes are the most extraordinary people who I would never have met had I not gone through that change. Or we may have crossed paths, but we wouldn't have got along.
yeah.
Um, so I think it's realizing that yes, it's shit right now, it's horrible right now, and it's hard to take that first step. But once you do and you commit to it, your world is never going to be it's never going to be the same. It's only going to excel, but not just for you, but for also everyone around you. I don't know if I
Mm.
answered your question then at all.
No, no, that's perfect because it is like you've got to understand that that's such a big one. I've been through this in my own journey too, the people that drop off.
Yeah,
So the way I generally describe it is, we're all frequency.
yeah,
That's been proven. That's not just the woo-woo shit. That's science right there. We're all
yeah,
frequency, right? And when you're moving through something or the person that you're being and your personality holds you at a particular frequency.
yeah.
Now, when you step in and you do this work and you let go of the things that were holding you back, your frequency starts to shift. So I want to imagine like Chelsea's in Melbourne, I'm in Brisbane. We've both got the Nova station here, right? The frequency that I tune into 106.9 for Nova in Brisbane, that's not an ad, by the way, doesn't reach Nova in Melbourne. It's a
Yeah,
different frequency. It's too far away. So it's not that you've got a better version of Nova and I've got the worst one or anything like that. It's just a different frequency. I
yeah,
can't tune into the Melbourne radio. I can only tune into Brisbane. And so
that's right.
when we understand that we are also, like a radio antenna, we've also got a frequency, you'll start to understand that you will find people in your field that there is no static trying to tune into something else. It's just that clear sound that comes through your radio. And
Yeah,
I've had this, it's so many times in my life where naturally and some a little forcefully people have dropped away because it doesn't align with the version of me that I am. And
hmm,
to be honest, some of them I'm like, off you fuck. And others I'm like, oh wow, that one really stung. And that's
yeah,
one of the things I always say to people, that you've got to be prepared that as you change and other people around you are no longer a match for that, there's going to become a time in your growth journey when it's very quiet and it's going to just be like tumbleweeds, and it's like,
yeah.
um hello, is anyone out there? And you're just wondering like, am I just doing this and have I pushed everybody away? And then you go to an event or you do a podcast or you do something and you connect with your people that get you on a level and they see you and they're like,
Hmm.
sister, I've been there with you through that. And it's like reconnecting with your soul tribe, like from your soul pod. It's like, oh my God, there you are.
It's so true. Everything you've just said then is so true. And yeah, it's random events that I would normally never go to or previously not because I was keeping myself safe. But also, I think the other people in your life before, you were forging their path, not your own, because they
Yeah.
wanted you to do things. And you really, like, I know I had given my power away, like career choices, lots of things like that, because people do influence you. So once you get that back, it's amazing. And yeah, you show up to an event and then you go, how do I meet these people? Like, where have you
Yeah.
been my whole life? Because it changes. I also have found that my kids are challenging me right now. It's, they're teenagers, but they can see different changes in me. Not all of them they like because now there's some boundaries in place and where's mum? She didn't have boundaries before. But you can also see change in behavior of people who are close to you and want to stay around or have no choice because of your children, they have to stay there. But like it does, it impacts their behavior as well. So yeah, it's incredible. But yeah, being ready to change and want to change is, I think, is a huge key. And I'm working with someone right now. We did one session and she had incredible results and thinks she doesn't need any more. I'm like, yeah, yeah, you do. But she's too
Yeah.
scared to continue because what else might change?
Exactly. And change can be for someone that isn't comfortable with change and there's a level of uncertainty and the nervous system can't handle that change and that uncertainty and that essentially the lack of safety that's involved.
Yeah,
It's going to have a conniption. It's going to be like, oh my gosh, we can't handle this. No, pause, slam the brakes on, and then they end up in that fight, flight, or freeze, and
yeah,
then they're not nourishing themselves essentially because we just get onto that cycle of I'm not going to survive this. It's
yeah.
yeah, it's such a normal thing, isn't it? And it's like let's normalize the fact that it's shit scary sometimes to do this work.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it just you feel really good in that moment, but you've got to keep going with it. And I was having this chat with my client as I was driving here as well, and we're talking about how this kind of work really brings out your intuition even more.
oh
And
yeah,
because did I have it before? I don't know, but it's really heightened now. And if I'm in a situation where it's not right, my body will not stop screaming until I'm out of that situation or if I'm doing something. And there's some things at the moment, like healthcare is pretty toxic, but it's where I have to be at the moment. And every single time I think of work, my body is like, you need to get out of there. And until I do, it's going to continue to scream. And she was saying she's finding things like that as well. So it's amazing when you're out of alignment, as you spoke about, it won't let up until you
yeah.
do something about it. You've done the work, and your body's like, you've done the work to change this, change it. And we're not going to let up on you until you do. And I know a lot of people will find that weird as well, but it's when you know it's right, and your body lets you know it, and when it's wrong, it lets you know that too. And it's not
Absolutely, and we have
nice.
to listen to it. Yeah, yeah.
You
Oh, it's
do.
uncomfortable at all times, but we have to listen to it. I love that you touched on intuition because I work with my intuition a lot. Like I even
Mm,
muscle test when I'm unsure if it's my intuition or my ego speaking.
mm,
But the intuition part, like we all have it. We especially as women and
mm.
especially as mothers, it becomes
Yes.
heightened when we transition from maiden to mother. It not saying that, people that don't have children aren't intuitive. It's just a different version.
It is.
And my intuition, especially since I've had children within myself and for my children, and then obviously, connecting with other people as well on an intuitive level, it's heightened so much. And the more you trust it, the more you think, no, this isn't just my imagination. Like
Mm,
this is real. I'm not just making up a story. You can use your intuition as your guide. You can use it as your compass to
mhm.
check in. Like, is this where I'm meant to be? Am I a full body fuck yes or am I a no?
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I totally agree. And it's yeah, and when you know you're in the right situation, everything is calm. It's just it's incredible. And then you take a step that way and you go, "Ooh, I'm not meant to be here."
Yeah.
Um yeah, and I think that that's another thing that can freak people out is like what's going on here? Why aren't I just feeling good the whole time? Because you're
Yeah.
not making the changes and taking the action that you need to take.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's inviting in constantly that self-awareness. And it
Yeah.
it doesn't just land straight away. You don't
No.
just wake up one morning and be like, yeah, cool, I'm going to pay a coach for a session. I'm just going to be woke as fuck and I'm going to like have all of these downloads and awareness and I'm going to be
Yeah.
like so intuitive. You know, I
It
mean,
creeps
look,
up.
maybe for some people, good on them,
Yeah.
that's great, but the rest of us over here are, in the trenches doing the work on ourselves.
Yeah, and
Um
it's one of those things that I think creeps up. And then when you start to, because you've got this uncomfortable feeling and you don't know what it is.
yeah.
And sometimes still, I'll get an uncomfortable feeling and I'm not sure why I'm getting it, but it's going to come to me at some stage. Usually in the
Yeah.
middle of the night, it'll wake me up. But
Always, always. It's funny because, like, not only, I'm a coach, obviously, but also I'm a Virgo. So I'm very analytical,
Mm.
critical, self-judgmental, all of those things. And it's interesting because there's been a very big part of my journey, which I've gotten clear on, recently, is my need, like the fact that I know the things, like I know a lot in the coaching space. I know about the subconscious mind. I know
Yeah.
about limiting beliefs. Like I could talk for days underwater with a ball gag about these things. And then I reflect it back to myself and it's like, you shouldn't be feeling this way. You should have moved through it by now because you know the things to get through. And it's like, hang on, hang on, hang on. Let's just take the fucking coach jacket off for a moment and just be a human, because at the
Hmm.
end of the day, we're all still human anyway, whether we're a coach or a facilitator, or we know the things, whether we, know epigenetics and teach it and support other people through it. We have to remember that we're still human at the end of the day. And there's this, I don't know about you, Chelsea, but I've experienced this in the coaching industry. There's this toxic expectations within coaches to have their shit sorted and
Hmm.
show up perfectly because they've got all the answers for everybody else. They should know all the stuff for themselves. And there is a lack of authenticity or transparency of their authenticity in the way they show up. And I'm
Yeah.
fucking done with it. I'm not even kidding.
No, I hear you. And I'm one of the first to let people know. I find that most of the clients, and I'm not sure if you get this, Jen, as well, the ones who come to you, they're working through something I have not worked through yet, and I need to.
Oh
And
yeah,
so
they're all
when
a mirror.
it's amazing. So they're talking, they're getting their learnings. I'm getting learnings from them, and it changes things for me. But it also makes me realize, oh shit, I haven't worked on that yet, and
Yeah.
I need to, because I can see that it's holding me back. So I've got a colleague and we swap sessions weekly because we know that we need to. And like we say with this program, you don't need to go on with it. Like we work on a certain amount of things and then that's it, kind of thing. But when you're working with people, you are constantly needing to go back and do stuff because what they're going through comes up for you. So I completely agree. And I know that I used to look at coaches and expected them to have their shit together. And if you don't have it together, why would I trust you? But nobody is ever going to have everything together 100%. And if they did, they're not human, and we're working with an AI. So, yeah,
Yeah.
no, I hear you with that. It's, yeah, everybody knows I still have work to do and still will continue to do work. And that's life.
It's so true, isn't it? Like, it's interesting because, like, you go, say, for example, you go to the doctor because you're really, really unwell and perhaps you just need some pharmaceuticals in your body, right?
Yeah.
The doctor's still going to look up which one to prescribe and how much of it, and we're
Mm,
not like, oh, well, you're not a real doctor because you don't know all of the things.
that's
They're
right.
looking the things up to get it right. They have access to all of the information. They might not, have it at their fingertips straight away. And I think I don't even know where in the journey of the coaching industry where it's become so toxic that, if you're not, cheering on yourself for doing your 50K months and doing this, then you're not a real coach, or that
Yeah.
helped this many people or done this, or it's all about like I just see it as so like the toxic accolades of the coaching industry.
Yeah.
And there's just a lack of humanness in there as well. There's not mentioning any names at all, but I know of someone that, teaches coaches. And when they get into the business side of coaches, it's like, or when you're sharing your figures around how much you made for the month, you're including all of the people's money that you help go out and make theirs. So, say for example, so it's like, oh, I had a 200K month. They might have made 20K selling programs, but all of the people then sort of pull together like, oh, how much did we all make? Like, how much did I help them make? And
Yeah.
it's just, it's gross. Like,
Yeah.
I find it really icky. And so, like, if I line to, when I go out, like, I've got an amazing coach at the moment. And when I connect with someone who I want to learn from, I look at them, I'm like, show me your humanness.
Yes,
What are you working through at the moment? What is your shit? What is your darkness? What is your shadow that's coming up for you right now? And if you say you've got none, then you're not the coach for me, or you're
I
not the
agree.
fellow practitioner for me. And I'm so transparent in my stuff, especially with my, my group programs and stuff like that. Um, because I don't want this, this separation of I'm better than. I
Hmm.
always say I'm walking alongside people. We're
Absolutely.
literally on this journey together. Just because I've studied certain things and I know things in a different version to what you know and I can teach you does not make me better because of it. And so I just think like there's so much room for authenticity in this space, and letting anyone know that wants to step into receiving personal development support, from Chelsea, from myself, from anybody else, we're all still human along the way too. We don't
Absolutely.
have our shit together. We yell at our kids. We have fights with our partners. We forget to pay a bill here and there. You
Yeah.
know, um, it's we've got to bring back the humanness into all of this. And we have our fears. We have the times where we don't feel safe, and we have to really go inwards to be like,
Hmm.
I'm safe in what I'm experiencing.
Yeah. And I have to admit, only I think maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago would I actually give myself the title coach, because I didn't
Mhm.
feel like I deserved it. Who am I to have a title with coach in it? Um, but also probably from that perspective as well, because you have them up here on this pedestal that they're a coach, they know everything, they couldn't have any limiting beliefs left or limiting emotions, and they must have their shit together the entire time. Well, no, they don't, but they don't want you to see it. So you're very right. Yep, I yell at my kids the whole time. That's never going to change. That's just the way life is. But nobody can have their shit together the entire time. And if anybody tells you they do, they're lying. It's like when I
Yeah, and
say,
run.
yeah, yeah. And because I work um, with mothers and little babies, and I might offend people here, but when they say they love motherhood the entire time, bullshit. Nobody ever does. I'm sorry. You don't. So when
Mm,
people say that to me, I'm like, now tell me the
mm.
truth, you're lying. So it's a bit like a coach. You can't love everything the whole time. You're never going to be perfect at it. And you're always going to have something that you need to work on as well. Um,
Yeah.
and I actually embrace that now, whereas before I was scared of it. So
Yeah.
now it's,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's funny when you were
Yeah.
talking about pricing, it just reminded me of it's a little bit like network marketing, that scenario that you were saying,
A little
which I
bit.
use.
Yeah. 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 It's funny because I have a lot of clients in network marketing. I've dabbled in it myself and stuff. And as a business model, it's sometimes it can be phenomenal, right? And
I
it's
was in it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And the thing is though, I don't appreciate the caginess of it because people hide behind calling it something else.
yeah.
Or it's that like, or I've seen a lot of sort of coaches move into network marketing now, which is fine, which is great. But they're now teaching people like it's all about hitting the six figures. It's all about the money, money, money. I don't hear anything about the actual product that they're passionate about
Yeah,
selling. It's all about the money stuff. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, where's the integrity of it? Just
absolutely.
some people, like I personally, I look at an MLM structure. For some people, it's amazing, right? I've
Yeah,
had my own online health and wellness e-commerce business, right? I shut that down a few years ago. I still have stock that didn't sell because I had to hold product.
yeah,
Like it was my own business. I ran it out of my garage. Like I had to, and if stock didn't sell, I was stuck with it. I had to pay insurance on it. I had to do minimum order quantities of everything. I
yeah.
had to try and keep up with a saturated market at the time because I wanted to be one of the big fish as a little fish. And so if I'd had the opportunity to step into something where it's like, hey, I'm passionate about learning about this side of business, but I don't have to hold stock, but I'm passionate about the stuff that I'm selling. Oh my gosh, it would have been a game changer. So the other day I was looking on LinkedIn and I came across this. It was like an ad essentially looking for coaches. And I was like, oh, I'm really curious about what this is, expanding in my network. And so I jumped on a call with this person. And it was so cagey. It was only at the end where I found out it was like a buy in model where you pay $17,000 to buy into their coaching model and then you sell it to other coaches. And
Oh,
that's not what the ad had said. If they were just upfront and transparent about it to begin with, not selling it as something completely different to get people in and be like, "Oh my gosh, yes, that sounds so amazing." I was like, "Don't waste my fucking time." Like, just
yeah.
be honest, be transparent about what it is, you know? I've seen people do posts, "I'm looking for 10 people to mentor."
Hmm.
You'll get this, and this, and then you get into it, and, oh, it's this business,
Yeah.
and then people like either feel obliged because they don't have the boundaries to say no. They're not equipped with the questions to ask, they
Hmm.
feel obliged, or they're just like, oh my God, I want that lifestyle. I want the 25K months, I can have that lifestyle, and so I think people get really caught in it. And I think it's just time for radical honesty across the board, which we were talking about earlier, off air,
Yeah.
about a certain airline, and it's
Yeah.
just like, let's just invite in so much truth into our lives. And the thing is, let's be truthful to ourselves. Let's say to ourselves, I am not okay. I need help. I need support.
Yep.
Where can I get that from? Okay, I'm going to go see Chelsea and have some sessions with her. I'm going to meet myself in the space of my not okayness, and I'm going to love myself so hardly through it.
Yep.
And then I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to get the support that I need. Because if you're not honest with yourself that you need help and support, then you're going to be, in this sabotage cycle going round on the merry-go-round.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we've said it a few times. I think once you get that respect for yourself as well, the respect that you'll get from other people. And a lot of us are looking for the acknowledgement and respect from other people. But if you don't give it to yourself first, you're never going to get it from other people because it's never going to feel enough.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
yeah, you do have to work out what it is that you want. And I know there's all that cliche about self-love and you can't love anybody else before you love yourself. And I used to think it was all bollocks. But it is true. And if you don't put yourself first, and it feels selfish. It really does feel selfish when you have pretty much your entire life put other people first, never said no, been a people pleaser, a perfectionist, and then you start to realize the only people that you are pleasing, and you're not even pleasing them as other people. You never can please them. They're
No.
never going to be 100% happy with what you do. But once you start doing it for yourself, and then you just drop that expectation of what other people, but they drop the expectation on you as well.
If
It's
and
just
that's if they do as well. Like, you want to then continue to be surrounded by people that meet you at the version of you that does create boundaries and
yeah,
that isn't self-abandoning, and be
yeah,
like, hey, I'm really supporting you in doing this. I'm really respecting you in this. I see you, and I'm really
yes.
I'm acknowledging you for doing this. Whereas there could be people in your life you're like, oh, here we go. You think, you can have these boundaries and they're used to walking all over you. Hello, they're the toxic ones. They're the ones that have got to go. They're the ones that are just no good for you.
Absolutely. And yeah, we spoke about that earlier. And it's as you said, it can be really difficult with some people in particular to see them walk away or to give you shit back. And I think that
Yeah.
happens a lot. They really try and challenge to see if you'll fold because previously you probably did. I did because you try and stand up for yourself and then you get challenged or guess or people will try and stop you and it's easier to give in or it was
Mm,
easier. I'd say was easier. Now it's
was.
kind of
Yeah.
you look at it and go, mm, and you start to see what they're doing in their patterns as well. And so, yeah, some people will stay around who you don't really want to, but it's like you almost, I don't know about you, it's like you've got this shield and it just bounces off.
Yeah.
And you just kind of go, okay, I would have reacted like this before. now I can kind of sit here and it's not going to impact me. It's not going to affect me.
Yeah.
And I'm also not going to give in to you.
I worked really hard in my life to get to that point.
Yeah.
And that like that was the work for me. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that is that is the magic of doing this work is that
Yeah.
you can get to a point where you love and honor and respect yourself so much
Yeah.
that your boundaries and your standards for how you treat yourself and how others treat you are unwavering.
Yeah.
You know, to stand so strong and say, this is not okay. I don't accept this.
Yeah.
I don't receive this. I don't appreciate this because this is also something I've worked with my children. So they're 8 and 6. So they're,
Mm,
it's the schoolyard stuff,
yeah.
and it's about using their voice and saying, this is not okay.
Yeah.
We need to pass this on to our children, to this upcoming generation, because if we teach them that if we're pushovers, am I modeling to my daughter that it's okay to look like a pushover? Am I modeling to my son that that's how women are treated?
Hmm.
Not on my fucking watch in this lifetime,
And no, I love that because your kids are so young, and I'm almost trying to undo the damage that my children have seen through living, I guess, in an environment where that was happening. And they would see me go to work and hold a, pretty high position, and I could never acknowledge my, I guess, qualifications or anything like that before because I didn't feel like I deserved them because it's not the way it was treated at home. And seeing the kids now, so my son who's 14, he knows right from wrong. He uses his autism as a bloody excuse, but he knows right from wrong. And he's really trying to push the boundary with me with lack of respect because he grew up that entire time of seeing that happen and me letting people get away with it. And I will say me letting people get away with it because I now do take responsibility for it. I did let that happen. Um, has it made me the person I am today? Absolutely. And having this discussion earlier as well, as much as I wish I had never experienced what I went through, in a way, I can now appreciate it because it has changed my life now. It's made me who I am, and it's also giving me an avenue to help other people through the crap. But trying to undo that damage that I can see both my children have been brought up with is hard. So for you to do it with an 8 and 6 year old, amazing. Because when they get to
Yeah.
16 and 14, it's harder to undo.
Yeah, and like just hearing my daughter tell me instances from the playground that she's used this already, I'm just like, yes, yes,
Yes.
yes. Like
You
this
go,
is amazing.
girl. That's
So, and
brilliant.
look, it all comes back down to personal power, doesn't it? And so,
Yeah.
what are some of the small steps that people can take to regain their personal power?
Yeah. So for me, I think like the first one I say is I know we all talk about goals, but it's actually looking at what's important for you and what matters for you. Take away other people's opinions or their influences. You've actually got to get back to what you want to do and what lights you up and creates your glow, I guess we could say. Um, Another one is look at when someone else has made decisions for you. How did that go for you? Like, did you enjoy it? Did you like it? Did it go down the path that you were expecting, or did you actually resent it? So
Mm,
I am the first to admit when it comes to big decisions at work or things like that, easy, can do it. If it comes to a decision at home, I'm crap because I had given my power away to other people for so long, but then I also had someone to blame if things went wrong. So now it's really looking at, okay, so in the past somebody made this decision that really didn't work for me. So what would I do differently? And taking that responsibility for it as well. And I guess the third one would be looking at what's holding you back and why is it holding you back? Is it because of the people you're surrounded with? Are you worried about what other people will think? Um, so I guess just three little things there is just actually start reflecting, become aware. Because when you
mm,
become aware of that little voice in your head, those things that you constantly say. So I know that one of the things that I didn't realize I was saying until I was working through stuff was I fucking hated my life. I really did. And I didn't realize I wasn't just saying it in my head, I was saying it out loud in front of my kids. And it would be just to walk into the kitchen and realize there's a mess like I just did before. Now I don't say I fucking hate my life. I just go, I wish you would help me out. Um,
Yep.
but I really did, and I felt it. I fucking hated my life. I really hated it. And it was
Mm.
every little bit. But my kids heard me say that all the time. So I think it's starting to become aware of those things that you're saying that aren't just impacting you, it impacts everyone around you. And yeah, it can
It's a big
change
one.
people's their life because their mum hated her life. So,
Yeah,
where
and
does
we
that
model
leave
from our
them?
caregivers. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's really just becoming aware and actually working out what is it that you want to be doing and why are you doing it? Is it for you or is it for someone else?
Mm. Yeah, it's a big one. Chelsea Webster, you are amazing. The work that you
Thank you.
do is amazing. And I'm honoring you for just being in your vulnerability and your authenticity. I've loved chatting with you. How can people find you? Obviously, we've got your website. We'll link to that in the show notes. But if people are like, hey, Chelsea's cool, I want to work with Chelsea, let's do some epigenetics and dive deep with her, what does that look like?
Yeah, so they can go to the website and you can book in. I say it's a 15-minute clarity call. And I guess one of the important things is, and I'd say you're the same, Jen, is I won't work with everybody. And that's not to say I'm rejecting people. It's because if people aren't ready, we're not going to work together because they won't want to take the action and won't want to change. But also, I might not be the right fit for them. So we have a 15-minute chat just to see where things are at. Um, and then we would go from there. And so they can go to the website or they can email me. You might put the link in there for me.
Yep, I'll pop it all in the
Yeah,
show notes for you.
yeah. So
Amazing.
that's pretty much, yeah. And we just go from there and see if it's a fit or if it's not a fit, or it might not be the right modality for them as well. And we look at that as well because there's so many different tools out there and so many amazing people who are working with people that we would look at that as well. So I don't feel rejected if people don't choose to work with me, but it's good to connect with people and just see where people are at and just to give little tips if we can on the day as well.
Yeah, beautiful. Amazing. Yeah. So we'll link to all of that in the show notes. I have one last question for you before we wrap this up, Chelsea. And
Yeah.
that is, what is the meaning of life to you?
Ooh. What a question, Jen. What is the meaning of life for me? Now, now it's actually, and this is going to sound extremely like I'm just trying to promote myself. It's actually giving back to other people. So, especially after going through so much shit, it's going, helping other people and seeing them transform and be the best version that they can. I don't think that that's saying that's the meaning of life. Um, yeah, just I'm finding happiness and joy in everything, and that's been a key for me. And it's waking up every morning and realizing, hey, life's pretty bloody good.
Yeah, I
So
love that. That's beautiful.
yeah,
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me on the show, Chelsea.
thanks, Jen. It's been amazing.
Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I hope you love the Enlightened podcast, and the biggest compliment you can give me is subscribing to this podcast, sharing it, and leaving a rating and review. Feel free to follow me on Instagram. My handle is @JenHamiltonOfficial, and the podcast handle is enlightened_podcast. You can also find the video version on YouTube on my channel. Just search Enlightened and don't forget to hit subscribe. Have a beautiful day and enjoy living the enlightened journey of life.